Well, welcome to Uncut and Unfiltered Cosmetology Insights with Nathan Shaw, where we help aspiring and current beauty professionals master the business and the craft of cosmetology so that they can build successful, long lasting careers. Your guide is Nathan Shaw, a dedicated educator and working man's hairdresser who successfully built his schools from his earnings from behind the chair. He generously shares his deep industry experience to challenge misconceptions and to teach you the crucial skills that you need to manage your career. I'm the host of the show, Andy Traub, and today we're talking about the incredible power of being known for one thing. In a broad field like cosmetology, where you can be trained in so many different things like hair, skin, nails, and others, it can be tempting to try to be everything to everyone, to try to reach more people. But deep skill mastery is what truly separates the successful stylists from the generalists. So today we're going to talk about specialization. Nathan, thank you as always for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So when you are thinking about getting into, as many people are listening to this, are getting into the field, they're not in it yet. We're going to talk to them. We're going to talk to people already in the industry next. But you're thinking about getting into cosmetology. The idea of really getting into one thing, I think, is a kind of a new concept. I think people, as they enter it, they go, "Well, I'm gonna do a lot of things." So, is that a good attitude as you go into the industry of, "Hey, I'm probably going to do a lot of different things." Is that a good place to start?
I think it's a great place to start for the education process when you're in school, just to find out what you like. You've got to be open to, like, hey, there may be things within cosmetology I was unaware that I'd be drawn to that is really what I enjoy doing. But then I think you need to get laser focused on what that is and what you're good at and double down on those.
So it's a good place to start to say, "Hey, I'm open to lots of different things within the industry." Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, and if people haven't gotten, we have a bonus resource that we'll link to at the end of the episode, where Bailey, one of the members of your staff who's in charge of admissions, is talks about how people find out what they want to niche in. Some people call it niche. I'm going to go niche. So I don't know where your niche or niche team, but I'm on team niche. But specializing in one thing, and how
Yeah.
people will come into school and they'll think, "Hey, I want to do this one thing," and then they'll get into something else. And they're like, "Wow, I didn't." They'll have, because they want to be more well-rounded. They'll learn about another area, and suddenly they'll go, "Wow, I didn't think I'd be that interested in that, but wow, I'm really interested in that. That's fascinating." So maybe take a minute and talk about people who are already in the industry and they find themselves sort of just trying to have a big menu of services because they feel like, "Gosh, I really need to be able to do 7 different things at any given moment because that's how I'm going to get more clients." How well does that work? Does that work for some people? And maybe what would you suggest if they find themselves doing a lot of different things with a lot of different clients?
I, in my experience and from what I've seen, it doesn't usually work too well. And part of that is at the end of the day, you kind of get known for what you're great at. And when you're trying to do too many things, which I think is a common desire of a lot of people starting out because they do want to be able to offer as many services as possible to, basically throw out that broader net and really get a lot of clients. But at the end of the day, you're going to get very good at what you focus on. And if you're doing too many of those things, you're going to be mediocre at a lot of things rather than great at a few things.
So, if someone is in the industry right now and they find themselves, less than fulfilled, and they think, "Boy, it seems so risky to just specialize in one thing." Maybe give us an example, maybe even in your own career, of someone you knew, or for yourself, when you or they decided, "Hey, I'm going to specialize in something," and it worked.
Obviously, I can speak from my own experience probably the most, but that was, what got me into the industry was less about I wanted to be a cosmetologist or a hairstylist, but I had a brother that started in the industry at first, and he got me hooked on color chemistry. I was kind of a science and math guy in school, so that stuff just made so much sense to me. I'm
So,
like,
for
oh,
someone new who's never heard that phrase, what I mean,
mhm.
I think people know hair coloring. That's fine. But what is color chemistry?
Well, there's a whole chemistry behind how professional and permanent hair color or even semi-permanent hair color works. And you really have, it's not just like you have one bottle. You're actually mixing a couple different ingredients at least to create that chemical reaction and understanding why the ingredients do what they do and how to use them properly. And so that was really a focus of mine because I understood the science really well.
So you got into the business and then you specialized in that?
Correct. And that's even really what got me in the business was he taught me about hair color chemistry before I even enrolled in school. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this. It makes so much sense to me, So,
Interesting. All right, let's go
yeah.
back to the person who hasn't entered into the industry yet, and maybe they just have been doing nails for themselves and their friends, and they're like, I really think I want to go to school for this and make a career out of it. Um, do you often see people come into it and they go, listen, I like this one thing, and they come in really good at it, and then they can specialize pretty quickly?
Absolutely. I think of recently a nail class that we had start, and a couple of the girls, they were young, but they'd been doing nails on their friends and family, you know, since probably mid-teens. So they were really already dialed into that, and so they chose to take just the nail course because they already knew they're like, I like this. I've built up a skill already. I want to get licensed and actually make a career out of this.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, you can come in and know what you want to do and get after it.
Yeah.
Maybe speak to someone right now that's listening and saying, I just can't imagine a world where I just get to do nails all the time. Like that's like maybe they're doing it for fun now or some side money, but like, could are there really enough people that they could just do nails, which maybe they love doing, but is there enough demand for their niche? Like, I think that's a concern some people would have.
I think it definitely varies from market to market a little bit, meaning like what's the saturation of how many nail technicians or cosmetologists are out there. But for the most part, this is a ever growing industry. The beauty and hair care industry it has continual growth year after year. During the Great Recession, it was one of the few industries that grew nearly double digit growth. Self care is always going to be, I think, a big item for a lot of people because it's how they reward themselves and people want to feel good about themselves. So I've never, as someone that's been in the industry and owned salons, I've never seen a shortage of job opportunities or opportunities within salons, so I think there's always a market there.
Well, let's talk about three different ways that you can approach and think about and consider when it comes to really specializing or niching down and really getting focused on one area. The first point we want to make is that when you decide to specialize, you can learn and get so deep, you can accelerate your knowledge and expertise very quickly. Because if you think about it, if I'm going to read, and again, I think about this, as sort of general education and then really specialized education. My freshman year of college, when I went to the 8 different classes that I basically had already taken in high school, but it was like, a little higher level, I
Mhm.
learned a little about a lot of things. And, if you ask me, how much smarter was I or better at, whatever, a year later, I would say not very, because I learned a little about a lot of things. But if I would have spent that first year of college really focused in on one of those areas, a year later, I would have been 3, 4 times better, right? If I really would have focused that effort, right? And so the first part and encouragement of really focusing on a niche or specialty is that when you do, you will learn really fast because you're taking all this energy you spread across all these other areas and you really can dive deep. So when you do that, here's the second part of the first one is that you can charge more quickly. So
Absolutely.
you can separate yourself. So when someone comes into your schools, what are their opportunities to do that, to niche quickly, to is there a nail track? Is there a coloring track? Is there a faster track if they go like, no, I really want to do this one?
Absolutely. If they're not sure and they want to do kind of like that first year of college experience, I would always recommend the cosmetology program, which is it's
Sure.
basically all things. It's going to be hair, skin, and nails. But
Yeah.
they may find out within that really quick that they like one more than the other, or they really have an affinity to one one domain. And at that point, we do everything we can to try to help them get as many appointments as they can in that specific domain so they can really increase their skill while at least becoming competent enough to pass the state licensing boards.
Love it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the second part we want to, or point we want to make with niching down. The first is that you can learn a lot, and go really deep in your knowledge very quickly because you're focusing that effort on one area versus many areas, and that allows you to charge more. The second point you want to make is that when you are specialized, it's easier for you to market. It's easier to know who you want to attract. If you live in an area where they do a lot of extensions and that's your specialty, then people, you've got that target market. They know what they're coming to you for. And I just think about how much better that person is going to be at that skill
Yeah.
if they do it 10 times more than the next person, right? Who sort of randomly does it here and there, right? And which is really it helps you as a professional and say, boy, if I could answer the question, what do you do? But not say I do everything.
Yep.
So, what are some examples where you've been able to work with students and work with professionals, and you've seen them really, and maybe just give some examples? There might be 5 or 6 or maybe 10 of
Mhm.
what are the things that people can specialize in? What are some niches that people could have that maybe some of them are known and some of them maybe would surprise people? What are some different niche areas?
I think there's a bunch. Obviously, you brought up a couple right there. I worked with a girl years ago who worked in our salon, and she wanted to do extensions and blonding. That was pretty much all she wanted to do, is make people really blonde and their hair really long. And
Huh.
she focused on that. She marketed on that, and I mean that's what she did all day. And she got very, very proficient in it. She could get to where she charged a lot because she was known for doing it so well. And again, that came back to the amount of repetitions and experience she had. So that's one. One thing that I've been involved in, involved in, is we've had some waxing salons where literally all they do is hair removal. And there's hard wax, there's soft wax, there's different types of wax, and we literally just use soft wax and do full body waxing in those salons. And because of that, people get very efficient and very good at hair removal, which can be a painful experience. So the better you are at it, and you get better at decreasing the discomfort for your clients, and you're
Yeah.
quick at it. So they want to be in and out in an appointment like that. They don't want that to be drug out to be a long time, right?
Well,
That
yeah,
example,
with all seriousness, they want you to be really good at that.
yeah,
They
absolutely.
they don't wanna go, "Oops." They don't, you never wanna hear an "oops" in those, right? I mean, it's
No,
it's like with your dentist or whatever, like, if someone's got a scalpel in their hand, you don't want them to say, "Oops," right? And you don't wanna
correct.
hear the person who's involved with waxing go, "Darn it," like, that's not good. Because
Yeah,
this is a very these are potentially really painful things, and just like coloring, like, you can do a lot, a lot of damage, a lot of damage.
absolutely.
And it's not 100% permanent, but it's almost permanent, right?
Yeah,
Or even with the blonding, you know what I mean? It's like these are not subtle changes, right?
no.
Right. So, what are some other areas that people can and do? And maybe we've already talked about some, but I just want to, for the listening audience, what are some
Again,
other areas that you've seen people specialize in?
I've seen people not just only specialize in nails, but they've specialized in, like, I only do gel nails or I only do acrylics. And so even within the type of nails, they might get very specific on what materials they use because there are different options, and they want to get like very proficient at one, and that's what they're known for.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
there's also, it's okay to say, "I don't like to do gel," or "I don't like to do acrylic." Okay, then don't, you know?
yep.
Like, I imagine working at a pizza place that's really known for their meat selection and you're, a vegan, like, "Why
Right.
are you working there?"
Yeah. Doesn't
Don't do
make
that.
sense.
Don't do
Yeah.
that to yourself, you know? So if you're listening to this and you're like, "I don't like half of what I do." Okay. It's first, it's good that you know that. Second, what can you do? And we want to help you through this show and through, other education opportunities that we've got, that you don't have to keep doing things you don't like, because,
Yeah.
people come from different, faith systems, but my system is you get one life. And so if you only get one life, let's enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And work is a lot of your life. So I want to get kind of people fired up here. Like, don't be afraid to specialize, you know?
Yeah.
So what are some other things in my conversations with Bailey, again, in that bonus resource we have about people who are interested in the industry or just learning more about your schools, which again, we'll have linked in the show notes, but she talked about how people can specialize to where they just, or and maybe not all of it, but they will do a lot of wedding work, a lot of
Yep.
event work, or they work with a specific photographer and they'll do makeup for, things like that. So, thinking a little more broadly, what are other ways that people can specialize in within the industry?
Well, I think those are some of them. You have people that get very much into the glamour side of it, where they do glamour makeup or glamour hair or wedding hair. They get known for event work. And that's a whole niche, being able to style that type of hair or to do that type of makeup. There's skincare, really getting into the skincare aspect. And even from there, you'll have some that will work with nurse practitioners or medical doctors and be able to offer like injectables, which, Botox and fillers and a lot of those things that have become super popular. And that's all
Mhm.
they do. And that's, again, what's going to make you comfortable, I think, as a guest or a client of that person is knowing like, oh, they're injecting people dozens of times a day and they're very skilled at it. It's not something they dabble in, right?
Wow. I would assume, and you tell me if I'm wrong with, I assume that would intimidate a lot of people to hear, gosh, I don't know if I want to do that. But I think that's all the more reason to go, well, if you can do it though, you you know, you're gonna that's a pretty, and I'm assuming the margins on that can be a very profitable business.
Absolutely. It's a really growing trend within our industry that has some great profit margins, and I think there are some people that are more fearful to,
Yeah,
they're literally
that's fine.
injecting things. But the people that have the confidence and love that stuff, they go all in and they get very proficient at it.
So I think the other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing as a professional is that you want to be known for the right things. And I remember someone once describing me for a former career, and they described what I did wrong. And I was like, so I'm like, oh man, they're telling everybody that about me. And it wasn't a bad thing, but that's not what I wanted to be known for.
Yeah.
And good news, bad news, it was my job to explain what I did. And apparently I wasn't doing it very well. So I wonder if those who are listening, if you could ask your 10 friends, what do I do? And they go, I don't know, you cut hair. And you're like, okay. Like that's the least profitable thing I do. Or that's one of the things I do. Or, I don't know, you do nails. For who? I don't know, anybody. And you're like, actually, I really like to do, So if someone is not really clear on what they're doing, then they're not going to be able to market themselves very clearly because, you know, with that confidence will become more clarity. With more clarity comes more confidence. And so, social media is a huge thing right now, and generalists are not very popular. What do you do? I do everything. Okay. You know? So let me ask you this. We're going to end with this part, which is what would you encourage people to do? Two groups. We talked about it a little bit already, but I want to really dive in here. If you're not yet in the industry, how should you go about finding a niche? And then we're going to ask if the people who are in the industry and they feel stuck and they don't really like what they do, how can they go find a niche? So you're not in the industry at all. What's your best advice to go make sure someone goes finds a niche they love?
I think you know, it's one of those things you can just look at the group of people you know. Um, Everybody out there has a group of people that they're close with. They know what they like to do as far as their beauty regimen. They probably got something they're already drawn towards. If you already have an affinity, like I love having my nails done, it seems like that's probably something that's going to be something that resonates with you. Or if
Okay.
you're into extensions, right? And the people out there in your small community, and I don't mean by a small town, I mean like the people closest to you, like, hey, this is something that people are after and I can provide that service.
And I want to encourage you all as well. If you're thinking in this and you're like, well, but I don't know how to do that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, or gosh, I just get it done for myself. I can't imagine. Like, I have a friend of mine, and I ran into her. Yeah, I used to work with her, and I said, "Well, how you doing?" And she's like, "I'm becoming a yoga instructor," and I was like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, like I love yoga and I hated missing my yoga. I realized how much I hated missing it. And then I realized like I have such a passion for it. And then I realized I I love it so much I want to teach it. And I thought that is a great like find the thing you love to get and go, what if I gave it? Right? What if
Yeah.
I became the teacher? Don't be afraid of that. I think that's a great way to find it for yourself. All right, this is more of a nuanced one, but I know we have people listening to the show. And again, if you're listening to this and you have other friends, which I'm sure you do, that are in the industry, send them this. Every single app and every single place in the world is going to have that share button. So click share, and maybe ask them like, "What's your dream niche?" Right? Put it in the group chat. Right? I want you to address the people that are in the industry right now. They're making a living in the beauty industry, but they're not happy because whatever they're doing most of the day, they don't really like to do. And maybe, Nathan, they feel, I don't want to get too gloomy, but they feel a little trapped. Like, I don't know, I've been cutting hair for 10 years or 5 years or 15, I don't, but and how would I go about finding something else? But I'm tired, or I just don't find myself making enough money in this specialty or this niche or this area. I want to stay in the industry, but I don't know, how do I go find another niche or find a niche I love? So what would be your encouragement to them? A couple really practical steps.
I think number one is be willing to pivot. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean like you have to find a whole new niche even, but it may be how you're doing it. Like one of the first things I thought of when you brought that up was like I did hair behind the chair for 20 years. I worked, in the early days 6 days a week, 12-hour days, double booked with an assistant, so I did start reaching a level of burnout. But it's not that I disliked what I did. I was just doing it so much that like keeping that pace was really hard after,
Okay.
10, 15 years. So I literally moved into the education space, right? I wanted to be able to teach that next generation of hairdressers a lot of the tricks I learned and the
Right.
tools and the skills. And so I think that's something you can do. And I'm not saying everybody's going to go be an educator, but there's product companies you can educate for. You can become a product rep, where you go out and like teach people how to use the products that you've used and work for a
Interesting.
manufacturer. There's so many
Interesting.
different avenues within this industry that your experience can open doors for. You've just got to be open to it, I think, and then willing to be like, hey, if I'm burning out or if I'm getting bored, what can I do with these skills I have that are out there? And there's a lot of opportunity that people just don't think that they're either
Wow.
qualified or capable for because they've never applied that to themselves yet.
Yeah, and we'll have another episode on that idea or that path of product reps. I know that we're this in our planning, that's one of those we talked about because I think one of the things that I know you're developing through your school and through just your own personal development of continuing to try to influence and help the industry is a place for people who aren't new to the business, a way and a path for people who are in the business to level up,
Yeah,
to become a multiplier. So instead of you and one client, that how can you move up a level and say, oh, I'm gonna teach or train or be in charge of, you know, um, other people instead of just being behind the chair all the time. Or and I think this is another way to talk about this, Nathan, is how can you take what you do and then get more serious about, you know, pivoting inside of what you're doing versus going from hair to nails could
yeah,
be a huge jump for some people. And maybe some people do that. But maybe it's like, no, like you're really great at all these products and you love this one product line. Like maybe you go teach other people how to use those products. There are people who do that, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's going to be great for you if you do need a change or if you want to travel, because some of those will have a bit of travel involved. Depending on the size of your market, you might be able to do it more locally as well.
Mm,
But it definitely gives you some other opportunities. And I think the other thing that is great about our industry is like if you're feeling that way, continue to get educated. Go out and take another outside class from other, professionals that are experts in their field, and get a new vantage point. And that can be on something as simple as a cutting technique, a new coloring technique if you're doing hair. Maybe it's a new product of nails, nail products that you're like, hey, I haven't used this yet. And
yeah.
sometimes that will reinvigorate you and give you it'll really upgrade your skill set and your earning potential.
Yeah, and I want this to be an encouragement. I'm not lecturing anyone, but if you want your life to be better, then work on making the person who has the most influence on your life better, which is you, right? If you want
Yeah,
to make your life better, then it can be very tempting to say, gosh, if my manager was different, or if my
yeah,
spouse was different, or if the girl that's to my right, or it's the booth right next to me, if she would just, I got bad news, folks. You don't have any control of those people. You might have some, but you don't have much. Even your own
yeah,
spouse, you don't. I mean, that's just the reality of free will, right? But you have a lot of control over yourself and a lot of control over the paths you take. And what if today, after listening to this, you just said, all right, I'm going to look into that one idea that Nathan mentioned, and I'm going to commit to making a phone call or sending an email or fill out a contact form to say, I'm going to look into that thing. Don't just
hmm
Google it and then let it go into the search history, but really look and say, I'm going to take a step to make an inquiry about, can I go to a local school and learn that one skill? Because that will influence the person in your life you have the most control over and controls your joy, which is you, right? And
absolutely.
it's those lifelong learners, and it doesn't matter the industry, but it's those lifelong learners that those are the people who succeed. So I want you to give a little bit of a pep talk here at the end, Nathan, and then we'll wrap up. Someone who feels lost, like I don't know what to do, and or the person who's in the industry and they're just like, I don't know, niching scares me. I want you to encourage them, and maybe there's a story out of your own life or a friend but I want you to encourage them and say, listen, it does work all the time, and niching is a good idea. So, what's your final word on this for anyone who's got a
Uh,
little bit of skepticism or fear? Give them the pep talk.
I think it's really just doubling down those efforts, finding the mentors you need, not being afraid to make those connections, like you said, to actually reaching out, getting that mentorship if you need it. And sometimes that's even becoming a mentor to those that are coming up behind you in the industry that are newer stylists. By doing that, I think when you have to teach something or you help someone, it actually makes you better, right?
Mm,
I know as an educator myself, like when I had to explain to someone literally how to do what I was doing every day, it made me understand what I was doing even better and it increased my skill set. So I think it's literally just doubling down to your point. You're the only one that can change that. And you've got to take that leap and that first step to commit to like, hey, I'm going to do this and see how it changes my outcomes.
awesome. So take action, and
Yeah,
with that will become. The main reason people don't take action is because they fear they will fail. And so what I would
absolutely.
say is assume you're going to fail to some degree. Assume you're going to go in and go, I don't know how to do that, and I'm going to do it wrong. Well, no kidding. No one's born and then they walk. Like, like, it takes a while to learn how to stand up and move your legs. Like we all have these things we need to develop. And it's just as adults, we get afraid of looking silly or not being great at something. And so you have to kind of be willing to be bad at something for a little bit. But also, I want to encourage you. I loved your advice, Nathan, about that. Is maybe there's an area maybe there's an area of the area of expertise you have that you could go even deeper in, right? Maybe you are so good at this thing, it's like you don't even realize how good you are at it, right? That there's a brand out there or there's a section of what you do that's like, hey, just if you do five things, that's 20% effort towards each one. What if you did two things? How much
Yeah,
better could you get at those two things if you cut off three of the others, right? And how much more could you charge? You listen, if you're listening to this and you know anything about this industry, you know that the same scissors in one hand in the hands of one person in the hands of another person, it could be 10 times as much in the hands of one person, 20 times as much, 30 times as much in the hands of one person. A coloring for one person can cost five times, as much done by one person or another, right? So
that's
it's
correct.
possible. You
Yep.
know that some people can charge more, and the question is, why not you? Why not you? Right?
Have
Become great at something. And I think that's really the message we have behind this is don't be afraid going in, go find something you're passionate about. And it might actually change. So go to school and figure out what the other things are. But if you're already in the industry, don't be afraid uh, to get better at something, to become great at something, to become known for that. So we will always have links in our show notes to other areas of Nathan's schools and other ways that you can continue to improve yourself. But we would love to hear from you. So reach out to us. We'll have that contact information as well. If you're like, hey, I want to get better, I just don't know how. That's, Nathan is in the business of education and making this industry better. So whether you're already in the industry or you're looking to get into the industry, reach out to us. All that contact information will be in our show notes. Nathan, as always, thanks for your expertise. Thanks for your encouragement to those who have not yet been in the industry or those who are already in. We look forward to more really helpful conversations.
Likewise. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.